Well, joining us on this broadcast is a very special guest, innovator, academician, Raman Magsaysay Award winner Sonam Wangchuk, who's essentially been credited for changing the face of education in the mountains. But today, he's here for a different reason altogether. He's right now trending on the social media essentially because of his super catchy line, "Cheen ko jawab sena degi bullet se aur nagrik degi wallet se." Thank you very much, Mr. Wangchuk, for speaking to Republic Media Network. Let me first begin by asking you, what's the reason behind this catchy phrase which has taken everyone by a storm, because it's been trending? But I would like to ask you, do you really think that this is going to alter the Hindi-Chini bhai-bhai relationship altogether?
Well, I don't see much bhai-bhai status right now, as you see on the border, and in Ladakh have been every year there is some incursion by a few meters, and over years they've come inside many kilometers. So this time it is the limit. When you have corona-like situation, they are inflicting pain on people and nations. So therefore I thought that we should understand what they are really looking for. To me, it is more about their own internal, dissatisfaction and instability because of the anger of the people in China over the totalitarian regime. So they are taking this so that they can control the internal situation, and therefore we should not leave it just to the soldiers at the border. Normally citizens, sleep sound thinking the army will take on. But I think in this case, we should each one take a responsibility. We cannot be financing the same regime that is, waging war against our soldiers. So each citizen, therefore, I said, should not support this regime by patronizing their products, hardware and software. So therefore, we should, boycott made in China, whether it is hardware or software. And that is a stronger signal to this regime, because they don't care so much about our bullet power. They may even be a little stronger due to geographical and economic situation. But when it comes to wallet, when it comes to economy, they're most scared of it because they're scared of their own public. So when it hurts economically, that's when they listen, is my inference. And therefore, that is more for us citizens to do than to leave for the soldiers to do.
Mr. Wangchuk, I did actually take a look at the video that you posted on YouTube. In that, you make a brief mention about the current situation in Ladakh. So I would like to take this opportunity to ask you this question with regards to what exactly is the situation like? Could you tell our viewers a little bit about the situation currently in Ladakh?
Well, the border itself is quite far from where we are in Leh, so we haven't seen it for, ourselves. But what we hear is that it's quite tense. Thousands of soldiers face-to-face from both sides. And not only that, this time they have their aircrafts also ready, advanced, fighter aircrafts, which means it is somewhat serious. So people here believe that perhaps some resolution will happen, and I'm sure it will happen. I don't see this as a real threat. This is something that China wants to take advantage of by, taking India as a soft target they can fiddle with, and that way they can unite their own angry citizens. So people here do believe that we should stand up to this threat. We should not bow down, and that's what perhaps they are looking for, and hence my call for every citizen, rise up to this in our own way.
Can I then ask you, Mr. Wangchuk, what do people of Ladakh essentially have to say about this sudden Chinese aggression, something that perhaps even Ladakhis did not really expect?
Well, Ladakhis, have seen this happening over decades, and every time our blood boils because they keep coming in meter by meter, and we keep tolerating it. Our own would say, this is just a difference of perception. Let's not take it seriously. But the fact is that over years, it's kilometers they've come inside. So we seem to be, being too soft for a nation that doesn't understand that language. So while on one hand we should equal them with the bullet power, on the other hand, we should do what they fear most, the wallet power, and make it a movement worldwide. That's when they'll come to the discussion table.
Well, Mr. Wangchuk, this is something that even Republic Media Network has, over the last couple of months, we have, put this out. Multiple stories have been done about TikTok. Now, you've spoken about TikTok, you've spoken about various Chinese software. In fact, you've been exhorting people that Chinese software should be given up within a week. And you also go on to say that Chinese hardware perhaps should be given up in a year. Do you strongly believe that this perhaps is the right approach to send across a message to the Chinese administration?
Definitely. I think this is right and legitimate. As citizens, we have freedom to choose where we want to spend our money. The wallet as a ballot. We vote with our wallet regimes that are fair to their own people and fair to the world and fair to us, which we don't find. So it is like personal economic sanctions. It's very legitimate, and I think sometimes people say the government should do. I think it should be citizens first, and followed by citizens' mood, the government could make policies. Otherwise, the very citizens would oppose such moves. So it is very important that we uninstall all such apps that makes their companies rich, and that taxpayers' money goes into bombs and bullets at our border, and therefore we should stop financing that. I understand that it's not immediately possible, and that's why I say software in a week. We can uninstall all these crazy, stupid software like TikTok, which is, making our youth useless already. So we wouldn't lose much by removing that from our lives. Then comes hardware, whether it is electronic or clothes and machines. This we should vote out slowly over a year. Now, this very signal that India, and perhaps followed by India, many citizens of the world, look for labels that are not made in China will be a big problem for China, because companies will remove their factories from China, and that is what they are very scared of, which will affect their economy, which will affect their angry citizens. And on the other hand, it will help our own economy.
Right.
It will help the call that the Prime Minister gave, for example, of self-reliance. Now, self-reliance has to go hand in hand with, non-dependence on countries like China for cheap products. In any case, I think, we buy cheap products of which we don't even have need, just to junk our environment. So the answer is not always in finding replacements, whether we have in India or not. The answer is in discarding and living simply also, which is an ethos that our country has always had.
Well, it's something that you've also been advocating for a very long time, living a simple life. But Mr. Wangchuk, let me then also ask you, because it's a very pertinent point that you've made, that after all, it's our money which finally goes back to the Chinese and they use it to fight us at the border. But do you think that this statement of yours could be, misread, or there's a potential that this could be twisted completely altogether?
No, as I said, we should look at it as a personal choice. The government shouldn't have to answer this even. They should say it's citizens' choice, but we definitely make a choice. And this is not uncommon. If you go into China, you will see most products are Chinese. If you go to Korea, all the cars on the roads will be Korean. If you go to Japan, all the automobiles will be Japanese. It's only in India that we see the whole world here, and our own laborers, our own skilled manpower left unemployed. So this goes hand in hand. So while not financing a regime like China, we will be financing workers in India, which is both need of the hour.
I would also like to talk a little about something that you mentioned in your video that you've basically posted, and something that has found a lot of connection with a lot of people, because this is what I was reading on social media also. You talk about perhaps a potential Chinese uprising, because somewhere down the line you're saying that the 140 crore people that the Chinese people would at the end of the day are frustrated with what's actually happening in China. Do you think this clarion call of yours would actually send a message to the Chinese people? And somewhere down the line, you're pointing out that this is not against the Chinese people, but it's the way the Chinese government has been operating.
Yes, actually, I have great sympathy for the people in China. They are victims. They are just bonded laborers to a regime that uses them to, enrich their own system and strengthen their clutches. The only reason, in my opinion, this 1.4 billion people are quiet and going along is the economy, the GDP growth, the prosperity. Minus this prosperity, I think these citizens, like any citizens in the world, want a free democratic setup. They are not allowed to use media channels of the world. They're not allowed to go where they want to. Their houses are bugged. Everything is controlled. And who would want to live in this way, except for the prosperity of economy that has been happening? So it is very important for the Chinese setup to keep it burning. And the day this dwindles, they have an uprising ready. So we should understand what their weakness is and hit where it hurts, rather than only focusing on the borderlines with traditional, conventional bullets. We should look at other alternatives like wallets, which they understand much
Mr.
more.
Wangchuk, your slogan has struck a chord with so many people, because it's almost become a social media rage right now today. This line, Cheen ko jawab sena degi bullet se aur nagrik denge wallet se. It's become almost a rage right now. So I would like to ask you this question, because you go on to basically say in your broadcast that perhaps when it comes to some sort of an aggression or a border escalation, that generally when it takes place, we leave it to the army. We say that the army is taking care. We citizens don't have much role to play. But you today talk about a different dimension altogether. I want you to talk a little bit more about the role perhaps of every citizen in times like these.
Exactly. I have a lot of expectations from Indian citizens, more than, our soldiers are doing what they best can do under the circumstances. But I have, if I have any disappointment, I have from the citizens. Look at how we are handling COVID. Our government takes these important, timely measures like lockdowns of 2 months, and yet we just take it easy and do our monkey business, and then the virus spreads so wildly. So at least we can, for example, take care of our own health and not be affected by such viruses which cripples the nation, which weakens our economy, which helps our adversaries like China. On the other hand, I admire China actually in how it has handled the virus. Their number has been 82,000 for 9 months. And if we want to equal China, every citizen needs to be as caring, and it's almost like patriotism to be careful about, taking care of your own health is a very good act of patriotism today, as is using your choices as consumers. Us as consumers, we are like clients to so many Chinese companies, or China as a nation even, and we need to have that power of customer is a king, which is not how China is treating us as they, push us around at the border. So we have to make it clear that we will not keep supporting you in anything. And every citizen has a role to play. It's very sad if we keep financing the very army that's, hurting us. Now, sometimes people say, can we do it? Can we manage without Chinese products? Well, I'm sure in a year there'll be so many alternatives cropping up from Vietnam, from neighboring countries like Bangladesh, or definitely India, if we get our act together. So this will happen if people are determined not to support Made in China anymore. There'll be a whole ecosystem developing outside China to fill in this space. So we need not worry that there won't be any products we can take. That's why we are saying hardware in a year. Then secondly, very importantly, I would like to say that we need not only depend on these cheap products. We can reduce our needs. These lockdowns have shown us that we can be happy with much less than what we have. So what we used to have. So we can, rather than having 5 cheap Chinese shoes, we can choose to have one very well-made, handcrafted Indian pair of shoes. So we have to make choices, and those choices will have a great impact on how we stand up to such countries.
Dr. Wangchuk, I would just like to end this conversation on a lighter note, because in that particular video, you said that you were about to delete all the apps in your phone, all Chinese apps in the phone. Have you been able to do so? And if so, which are the apps have you finally deleted from your phone?
Yeah, it turns out I didn't have many. I definitely and happily and proudly didn't have TikTok. So I didn't have to delete that. I had Share It. I deleted that, and I'm looking for others if they have any Chinese connection, but they are not. So and I'm looking up to getting rid of all other Chinese products as a sanction from me personally on this regime. It's an economic sanction, a personal economic sanction for this misbehavior of how they handled COVID, and then on top of that, how they're dealing with their neighbors to deal with their own internal problems. We need to, hold them accountable.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Sonam Wangchuk, for speaking to Republic Media Network. It's always a pleasure. A clarion call that has been made by Dr. Wangchuk that perhaps it's time to rely on your own goods and boycott Chinese products.
But I would request all your viewers to do so and let others know that you're doing so. Declare how and what you are doing so that others get inspired. And when India does, maybe other nations who also share the same grudge will start doing. So we have to act. Only will we act will the impact be visible. Thank you.